Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my law firm assists physicians with employment contract issues. Today, I'm going to talk about negotiation tips for family medicine physicians who have a new employment contract to look over. So really, there are kind of two scenarios. One, if you're just coming out of training, and then the second one would be if you're an established physician in an area and you're either moving into a new practice in the area or potentially getting bought out by a larger practice or hospital network. The negotiation tips may be a little different for both, but I guess the general strategy is probably the same. So for anyone in family medicine who's been offered an employment agreement, the first thing you need to look at is the compensation. If you're entering into a new area where you have no ties, you need to make certain there's some kind of guarantee for the first 2 years. So, meaning many organizations are now requiring some kind of productivity component, either through RVUs or net collections. And so if you just immediately start a job and you're on productivity from the beginning, you are going to make a significant amount less than you would if you were given some kind of income guarantee, just because it takes time to build a practice, usually somewhere between 12 to 18 months for a practice to reach maturity. And so, if you're just paid, let's just say on net collections, well, if the average accounts receivable cycle for a claim is 30 to 90 days, well, you could be working for a month before you see a dime of that. So you need to make certain there's some kind of income guarantee for the first 2 years. And then if it does shift into maybe just RVU based, or as I said before, just net collections based, you'll be able to kind of gauge what your compensation will be. And they'll usually use the second year data as kind of a good indication of what you'll make in years, 3, 4, and 5 and beyond. So you need to identify the compensation structure and then make certain that you're guaranteed for the first 2 years. Also, finding out what is kind of a going rate in the area is beneficial. MGMA Data is what I generally use. It's not the be-all, end-all, meaning the numbers are helpful to know what's the median salary for family medicine physician in the South or in the East or the West, or hospital-owned versus private practice, but it can still vary greatly. The benefits matter, malpractice insurance, the restrictive covenants like the non-compete, all of those factors can determine whether a job is good or not. And so just basing it off of one number is kind of short-sighted in my opinion. Talking to your classmates, especially if you're just coming out of training, seeing what they're making, what they're being offered from their jobs is, I find, very helpful. If you're established, it's kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say unprofessional, but most people aren't willing to kind of talk about how much they make after you've been out for a long time. So that probably won't be as effective. But you also know your value if you've been out for a while, and how much I generate this many RVUs per year. These are my net collections. So that kind of data is very helpful. Don't be afraid to ask for more. Now, it has to be a reasonable amount. If you're being offered 200 and you ask for 400 as a family medicine physician, they're going to laugh you off. So, small jumps are kind of, I think, almost expected on the employer side. And then you also have to think about bonuses. So signing bonuses, relocation assistance, these are also things that should be in the contract as well. The signing bonuses vary wildly from, I guess, based upon geography. If you're going into a city or an area that's hard to recruit to, it's more rural, it's not as desirable for the general population, you're simply going to make more money and get a higher bonus. If you're moving into a big city where there's a lot of competition because people want to live there, the salaries are going to be depressed. I know it's kind of counterintuitive when you're like, well, if I'm moving into an area that's more expensive, the salary is going to reflect the cost of living. It's not, it doesn't. Because, like, for instance, I live in Scottsdale, people want to live here. And so, when you have 50 candidates applying for one position versus, some kind of rural town in South Dakota where there's two, there's just, I guess less leverage for the physician to try to negotiate a higher salary. So don't be, I guess, surprised if you're looking in a kind of a bigger city that the salary is just not going to reflect the cost of living as compared to other places as well. But once again, talk to your classmates, see, all right, what are they offering you? There are some programs, if you're moving into a hospital network, that can offer student loan assistance as well. You're not going to get that from private practice. They're not going to offer you student loan assistance if they're a private practice. So if that's something that's important to you, you need to look in more rural and with some kind of network, and they may have that opportunity. Some states also offer that as well. If you work in certain, healthcare shortage areas. So that might be something you look into as well. Next thing to look at is what type of malpractice insurance they offer. Is it occurrence-based or claims-made? Or I guess if you're with like a hospital network, they could be self-insured. If you do have a claims-made policy, and this is more for private practice, you need to look at who has to pay for tail insurance. Tail insurance is generally about twice what your annual premium is. And that could be, for a family practice, usually somewhere between $6,000 to $8,000 annual premium. So your tail cost would be somewhere between $12,000 to $16,000. That's a one-time payment. But that's one thing you want to look at. You can certainly negotiate for the employer to pay for tail. Or if it's an occurrence-based policy, you don't need tail insurance for that. Another thing you want to think about and attempt to negotiate is the non-compete. These vary wildly as well. So normally 1 year is about the maximum length that we'd want to non-compete. And then really depending upon the area, it depends. It could be anywhere from 5 to 30 miles. Two things you want to think about as far as that and trying to negotiate. One, you want the specialty as specific as possible. So what I mean by that is some family medicine physicians can do multiple things. They could do urgent care. They could do primary practice. Some could do, be a hospitalist or whatever. If you have a job, you want it narrowly tailored to that job. So let's just say you have a non-compete where you can't be in family medicine and private practice for a year within, 15 miles of your location. Well, if it's just like you cannot move under any circumstances and you have to stay in that area, well, you want the specific specialty that you're in for that employer to say that it's just family practice and private practice in that area. And therefore you could just do urgent care, be a hospitalist or whatever for the year period and then move back into private practice if you want. You also want to limit the number of locations. So is it just your primary location, or if you're working in multiple locations, is it the non-compete attached to each of those locations? Or if they're a bigger corporation or health network and they have, facilities all out, throughout the city, is it 10 miles from every single thing that they own? You want to narrow that to just your primary practice location, or maybe if you're splitting your time, those two, but you want to completely avoid non-competes that state it applies to everything that the employer owns. And then last thing to think about, do you have to repay anything if you terminate the agreement? So many times if you're given a signing bonus, relocation assistance, student loan assistance, if you don't stay for a certain period of time and you were to terminate the contract without cause, you would have to pay back some of those things. So some things to negotiate would be, like for instance, let's say you had a $30,000 signing bonus and you had a 3-year initial term. You want to make sure it's forgiven. Monthly would be the best. So 136 forgiveness, meaning for every month that you're there, 136 of the signing bonus is forgiven. And so as long as you stay for 3 years, you don't have to pay anything back. Now, some places will try to do yearly. And so in that scenario, let's say you're in year 3 and you terminate the contract in the middle of the year. Well, if it's yearly forgiveness, you just gave up, 6 or 7 months of forgiveness, and then you have to pay back $10,000 instead of, maybe 4 or 5. I mean, honestly, there's a million things you can negotiate in a contract. I was just trying to hit the highlights and the things that are usually most important to family medicine physicians. But if you have any questions, you can always call my law firm at the phone number listed below in the description, or you can reach us through our website, chellelaw.com. And I appreciate you watching the video. Thanks.